I'm Rochelle Courtenay and I'm super excited to bring you another bloody podcast. Today we're going to be chatting to Therese. Therese's connection with Share the Dignity runs deep, rooted in her personal experiences and challenges. After losing her mother as a teenager, she faced the difficulty of discussing menstruation without support. Leaving home shortly after, she endured further hardship by fleeing a violent marriage while pregnant and with nothing but the clothes on her back. She connects deeply with Share the Dignity's mission to end period poverty across Australia and is incredibly proud to be a Share the Dignity volunteer. Therese finds fulfilment in helping others and being part of a movement that makes a significant difference in people's lives. Welcome, Therese.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Okay, we have a would you rather card for you. Would you rather use socks you found in a lost and found box or use cheap public toilet paper to deal with your period?
Oh, I'm a bit of a clean freak, so I think I'd go for the toilet paper, even if it's cheap and it's at least if it's clean, because that thought of a sock that's not clean, that would freak me out.
Have you ever had to use toilet paper to deal with your period?
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
Tell me about that.
I think actually when I'd moved out of home, you have a bit of a method to how you roll it. Yeah, and you're trying to maximise what you can fit in your undies and, it's
The
nothing
problem's
pleasant
only women
about it.
face, right?
Absolutely.
I am so happy to talk to you, and I know that, and I say this, that when you volunteer, you give the most precious resource, which is your time. And to me, Share the Dignity would not even exist if it wasn't for volunteers. So firstly, thank you for being a volunteer. Can you tell me, when did you find out about Share the Dignity?
I think it's probably 6.5, 7 years ago. And then I thought, I should be just not putting in a couple of packets in a bin every few months. I should be just volunteering.
And what did you think about when you first heard that people were going without period products?
Well, I just thought the whole thing's just ridiculous. It's in a country as affluent as Australia, we should not have to have women or girls go through the experience of having to deal with that. It just doesn't seem right. I like you said, I like to help people, and I just thought, well, what can I do to make a difference? So I think that's where my roots of really wanting to just share what you do with Share the Dignity really stem to. And, you can see that it's something that really impacts every single woman and every young girl. And, it just needs to, not be as it was, where women just didn't have access to something that really it's just so fundamental to us. And when in your title, you say Share the Dignity, that's what it is. It's about giving people some dignity back. You see people on the streets and they've got no dignity. Women that leave a domestic violence situation or go to a safe house, there's no dignity in any of that. Mm. It's such a hard decision, and I know what that choice to make is like. So I would just not want any other woman to have to also endure period poverty on top of all of that.
Let's have a little bit of a wind back to when you were a little girl. Do you remember getting your first period?
Oh, my gosh. I remember it so clearly. I was 9. It was the day the Sydney Opera House opened, and we lived in a very small little terrace house in Rockdale in Sydney, and we had friends staying with us from Melbourne. And I remember our bathrooms off our dining room, and I got my period and I called out to my mum, and she didn't come. So I called out a bit louder, and then eventually she came, and all I remember her saying was, she looked at me and she went, "Oh, no." And that was it.
Oh.
And
9 is quite young.
Yeah,
Though.
I
Did
was
you have older sisters or?
No, I don't have. I've had 3 younger brothers.
Right.
And
did she help you? Did she give you something?
Yeah, she did. But I remember her saying, "Oh no, I was hoping this wouldn't happen for years yet." So I suppose
Welcome to your period.
that's it. I suffered a lot with my period, and I remember being in a lot of pain that day, and going into the intercircular quay on the train, and like walking around holding my stomach all day and wanting to constantly go to the bathroom and being dismissed, like, "You're fine, just keep walking. And unfortunately, my periods were terrible from that day. I had terrible problems with my period.
Were you ever diagnosed with
I wasn't.
endometriosis or anything like that?
No, but at 37 I had a hysterectomy, and unbelievably they found out my uterus was 2.5 times the size of a normal uterus.
You overachiever, you.
Aren't I?
Overreacting.
Which
Not much, right?
That's it. And I used to normally have a cycle that lasted about 10 to 12 days, and I wasn't allowed to use tampons because, good Catholic little girls didn't use those. It was such a struggle. After I had my 3rd baby, it was my husband that said, "Oh, Therese, seriously." I started to bleed very profusely, so it's like, I think I'm coming to the end of this. So having the hysterectomy was the most liberating thing I've ever done in my life.
I bet. Young to have a hysterectomy too, though.
Yeah,
37,
I was.
right?
Yeah.
It's interesting that because I had to literally beg my doctor to give me a hysterectomy. I had a partial hysterectomy, then 2 years later had a full hysterectomy. It felt like I had to sell how bad it was to be able to get it. So at 37 for them, and I was 50.
I do recall going to the GP, and she wanted to put me on a drug that she said that it was experimental, and they were giving it to young Aboriginal women to stop their period as a form of contraception. And I was very adamant, there's no way you're giving me that. So eventually I'd had enough. But when I'd had the hysterectomy, the doctor, who was just gorgeous, he was a young guy, and he went to uni with my brother's best mate. So it was a really weird connection. He walked in and went, I remember him shaking his head going, "This explains so much. Like, your uterus was bigger than any I'd ever seen."
Right.
So I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah, right. Well, because people don't talk about anything to do with that, right?
No, I suppose not.
Can we talk a little bit about your mother passing at the age of 15 and how that had a really big effect on who you were moving forward, right? How old was your mum when she died?
She got diagnosed at 34 with breast cancer and died literally almost to the day 2 years later. I was the eldest of 4, so my youngest brother was 7. So 3 younger brothers, so I'm very, very close to my brothers. You know, even the night she died, you know, we weren't allowed to stay at the hospital and even be with her. It was like, no, you're going home to look after your brothers. So
You would have been straight away, as soon as your mum was sick, been made the mother then, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember the date, Rochelle. Like, it's ridiculous, isn't it, that you can remember things like so clear. The 8th of August 1979, exactly a month after my birthday, my father came into my bedroom, shut the door behind me, and he said, "I've just been to see Mum's doctor, and they've given us 12 months to 12 years.
That's a very big window, isn't it?
Yep, and she didn't even last 6 months.
So she must have had quite advanced breast cancer, right?
So
So there wouldn't have been screenings and things like that back then.
Of course not.
So young to lose, for her at 36 to die, but such a really important age for you as well. How old were you? 15 when she died?
It was my first day of year 10 at school. So I had that first day off, went back to school.
The next day?
Yeah, for a couple of days.
And did anyone talk to you?
this is the thing I really love to see how society's changing too. It was all really about Dad's loss. There was not really any talk about our loss. The day of my mum's funeral, my father's mother slapped me across the face and told me to pull myself together. So we're saying the Lord's Prayer, and the priest was really good friends of our family. We're still friends, you know. And I started crying. He was crying, and I started crying, but I wasn't loud crying.
Doesn't matter, you could be any crying you want.
But I was
you just lost your mum.
Yeah, sitting in the front pew, crying, and my grandmother grabbed me by one arm and slapped me and said, pull yourself together. And that was it.
Here's how you deal with grief.
This is how you deal with grief.
Keep it to yourself.
That's exactly it. And then it was all about Dad, and he used to say Mum's the queen of the castle. But the wheels fell off because Mum couldn't work, Mum couldn't do anything. So I was cleaning, cooking, walking from Rockdale to Rockdale Plaza to get shopping because she couldn't do stuff. I'd come home from school and I'd do homework and then I'd iron or I'd help cook dinner, or my youngest brother, I'd be looking after him or whatever because she couldn't do everything. And then I remember my mum saying, and I know she would have been saying it, you know, not realising the impact it had on me, but a few weeks before she died saying to me, look after your father and your brothers. And look, that stuck with me my entire life, to be honest, because I'm very protective of my brothers. They've really been like my world, you know. And it has created problems because it's hard to let go. And, yeah, not everybody understands how you can have so much unity with your siblings, you know, but we really have been through a lot. And Dad walked in the back door the day of my mum's funeral and said, oh, we'll have to start looking for another wife. My mum wasn't even in the ground 5 hours, and that was what he said.
Can you tell me a little bit about when your mum had passed away, being the only girl in the house, how did you actually ask your dad to get you period products in a home where you would never have talked about those things, right? Like your mum didn't want to talk about it, so how bad was it for your dad to talk about it?
I remember him actually saying once, like, what are these? You know, it was like, well, I need. My last year of school was probably the hardest because once I started to earn my own money, I could still even go and buy a cheap packet of something and I'd smuggle them in. I mean, how many women would you know of that have done that? Smuggle them in.
Lots, right?
Lots.
That's the problem is that there's so much shame and stigma around menstruation that it's a bodily function. It happens to half of us. And if it doesn't happen to you, you come from somebody that it did.
Yeah.
So, you know, I remember being in my early 20s and hiding my period products in my trolley. If you don't mind sharing, will you share what happened in your first marriage?
I met a fellow he was funny, and I was going through really difficult times in my family, and it was like a big escape. I think I just ran off with the first fellow that looked sideways at me, to be honest. And, he made me laugh a bit. I mean, it was bad from the word go, but I just still saw it as an out. I'm sure I'm not the only woman that's ever said this. I thought I could make him happy. He'll be different, you know. And very unfortunately, he was an alcoholic. Of course, to this day denies that he's an alcoholic, but unless he'd drunk his quota of beer for the day, wouldn't go to bed. Unless there was money for beer, we could go without anything else. I remember asking for money for maternity bras and he gave me $20. But as long as there was $30 for a carton, then we're right. So it was just, it was violent. It had lots and lots of things that happened. And I just constantly made excuses. I did leave once. It was just bad from the outset. I mean, from our honeymoon, he didn't go near me on my honeymoon. So 3 weeks I thought there was something really wrong with me. And, of course, my mental state started to deteriorate. I was getting very anxious. I had lots of issues with his family as well. They were very anti me being Catholic. I was still a practising Catholic. I still am a practising Catholic, but they would just make fun of me. This is the problem with taking religion very seriously sometimes. You actually can't see the forest for the trees. So I thought, well, I'd made this commitment. I don't know how many other people would have said this in their life, but I won a competition based on this. You had to talk about the most unpleasant or difficult thing that you incurred on your marriage day, and mine was when the priest said, "You can kiss your wife," and my husband said, "Do I have to?" So really, to be honest, I could have just walked out right then and there, but, you know, you've got 140 people there and it's a big Maltese white wedding thing, so I just stuck it out as long as I could, and then when I fell pregnant, things went from bad to worse. Insanely jealous. I was very sick, 3 pregnancies, sick from start to finish.
Right.
And he just saw that as me trying to get attention. I'm making myself sick to get attention. It was just insane. And Christmas night, after my family left, we'd been in our new house in Lake Macquarie for 10 weeks, and he held me over the balcony by my hair, tried to throw me off the balcony. So I decided then and there I was going to go, but I was trying to think of an out. And I had, of course, said to him I felt like he never really loved me, never wanted to go near me, and his answer to that was, well, I'll make sure you never want sex again. So after I'd gone back the first time, I've been raped numerous times. And just when I thought I'd get out, I found out I was pregnant. So I guess I've initially thought, well, you know, I'll be okay, but like I said, it went from bad to worse, and then I realised if I didn't go, he was going to kill me and my baby. So it was really just sheer self-defence. But then the night that I went to go, he picked me up and threw me against a wall and dislocated my shoulder. So
you were pregnant.
I was pregnant.
Knew that you were pregnant.
Yeah, he punched me in the stomach at the same time. The whole relationship was really just based around lies, intimidation. He hated my family, my friends. He used to say things like, "Oh, you know, you love your family and your friends more than me," and so, you know. But anyway, finally, actually, I've got to tell you, it did finish on an incredible note because, you know, the day that I left him, I said to him that morning, "I'm going to leave." He said, "I don't give a fuck what you do." And I was like, okay.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I actually, still beating myself up, went back to bed and screaming in my head like yesterday, "Lord, give me a fucking answer." And I swear to you, it was like I got struck by lightning. Clear as a bell. Get the hell out of there. So after all of that doubt and everything, I just got up, I packed my bag, I wrote him a note, you know, very...
Was it kind?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm telling him, you know, I didn't want to go, but he gave me no alternative. And of course, I let him, you know, have a relationship with the baby, which turned out to be absolutely horrid. But then I packed my bag. I rang my brother, my baby brother, and I said, "Paul, can you come to Newcastle with me to get my things?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, no worries. My uni lecture just got cancelled." I was like, "Okay, well, I'll come." And we just long bought a new car. Mm-hmm. And I thought, "Oh, fuck this, I'm taking the car." So I got in the car, and as I was driving out of the driveway, I put the radio on, and there was not one word spoken between the first bars of the song, "I Can See Clearly Now." Not one word. So just that song came on. If you know the intro to it, I was just like, and I remember breaking out between a laugh and a cry and getting to the
Relief.
top of total relief and just feeling this enormous weight lift off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I knew I'd never go back.
Do you think that you left because it wasn't just you then? It was you and a baby?
Without a doubt. I think without a doubt. I think as mothers, we instinctively protect our body and our baby from its inception.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I just had to get out of there. So it was a very long process to get my shoulder right. Just a lot of chronic pain. And, of course, you're very limited with what you can take with pain relief once you're pregnant. But, yeah, I went and got my belongings or, some of them, and I went back and was living with my father and one of my brothers. I still remember as clear as anything my dad saying, "Oh, well, what did you expect?" That was my welcome. Dad was anything but understanding. It was very difficult with him too. So what I actually initially escaped from with him, with the control and you're not good for anything other than to get married and have children. So this was the whole thing about getting married so young.
Settling.
Just settling. I thought it really was the answer. It's just so crazy, isn't it? So when I talk about it, I always just think it's really just, if I can make a difference to one girl. My daughter is beautiful. My daughter's 32 and a mum now. And if I've been able to just teach some young girl that you are worth so much more than that, you are entitled to be free and joyous and achieved,
loved, right?
And loved.
And you're valuable.
That's it. And I just didn't grow up with any of that.
Yeah.
So I didn't think I was worth anything, which is why I got married, because I thought this guy would make me happy. The whole part of my deciding to get married and everything, I don't know if I really thought it would work, but I really thought that I could still make him happy. Doesn't that sound ridiculous?
Not ridiculous. And I was brought up, I believe, to start dating, get married, have children. There was no ever any other conversation of anything. It was just what you were meant to do, right? Yeah. And I hope like anything that is not what our children are now, our daughters are now being taught to do, There was never any talk about the value of yourself as a person, right?
Definitely.
So I think it's sad for us that that's what we grew up with, but exciting for what our daughters and our granddaughters will experience.
Without a doubt. So anyway, I had the baby, but he rang me at work and said to me, if I ever lay eyes on you or the baby, I'll put a bullet through both of your head. And that was like, okay, game on. So I didn't tell him again. No, didn't tell him that I had the baby. I didn't tell him where I was going to have the baby. And I had the absolute brain wave magic idea to go straight back to my maiden name. And the second that Megan was born, I registered her in my name.
Right.
So, of course, the shit hit the fan. So when he found out that I'd had the baby, but I put him down on the birth certificate, but I didn't name her after him. Mm-hmm. I'd had her baptised as well, so he wanted to have her Catholicism refuted and have a name changed and yada, yada, yada.
I always say there's lots of different types of intelligence, right? Your emotional intelligence is very high. I am sad for some of the things that you've had to go through in order to get that, but I know that the women that we serve at Share the Dignity, the women that don't have access to period products or wouldn't otherwise not get a Christmas gift, they're the ladies that benefit from everything that you've been through and that Share the Dignity is all about. Have you done a drop-off at a charity that really resonates with you?
There's a couple of places at Bankstown. There's a community centre out there. You pull up at places and there's kids' toys all over the place in the front yard and it's pretty run down, and, you know, you say you're here from Share the Dignity and you're dropping off either the bags or the sanitary items, and it is, isn't it? It's like this, you've become this beacon of light to somebody.
Like a superhero cape is what our Sheroes have got, right?
You really do become that for these people.
Yeah.
Like, you're really giving them something that they just wouldn't have otherwise. And like, I left my first husband with $5, but at least I had a handbag, you know. At least I had clothes on my back, and I was going to a house that I was part owner of to collect some of my personal belongings. But for most of these women, they don't have anything. They have nothing, which is just why I love this so much, because I know the difference and the impact that it makes. And just to be able to share. And I realised, you know, the one thing I've realised about volunteering, I've realised people want to help and they don't know how.
I always say that.
It's true. If you say to them, I need you to give me this, I need this, man, you watch them come. I get people that will say, look, I can't get to the shops, but there's $50. And I'll go, unreal. I'm packing bags and I'm short, you know, 10 boxes of tampons.
Yeah.
So everybody collectively, I think that's what I love about volunteering, is giving people the ability to help in ways that they never thought that they could do anything. So collectively, all of us doing these little things, this is why I take my hat off to you, because what you've created from the grassroots up, it's a vision, and it's not easy to grow a vision. You know, you need other people to do it.
Well, we're always stronger together,
We
right?
absolutely are.
I wanted to just make sure that people that are listening at home understand what our volunteers do. So we do 3 collections a year. In March and August, we collect period products. So collection boxes go out in all Woolworths stores, then as many businesses and places that we can, because it's not just about the collection of the period products. It's about the voice and the conversations that take place. We also do It's in the Bag. So It's in the Bag is like my favourite child. So the last 2 weeks of November, we ask everyday Australians to pack a handbag, fill it with life's essentials, things like shampoo, conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, soap, then period products. Then whatever else you put into your handbag is completely up to you. So it's up to your bag size, your imagination and your budget, right? But things like, I always put hair ties in because I've owned 7,422,000 of them in my lifetime and I can never find one. I always put a chapstick in because my lips are always dry. So think about the things that you would want if you were fleeing a domestic violence situation and you don't have anything. Those bags then get dropped into Bunnings the last 2 weeks of November, and then our incredible volunteers pick them up, check them and drop them into a domestic violence shelter or a homelessness service, or the ones that we can never fill a gaping hole of is all of those that are now living in poverty. And, you know, there are more than 5 million Australians who are now living below the poverty line. So without our volunteers, we actually can't do Share the Dignity. So for me, it was always really important to give you the wings, make sure that you've got all the tools in your belt to be the superhero in your neck of the woods, because I can't be in Bendigo, I can't be in Brighton, I can't be where you are. So our job was to make sure that you had everything that you needed, as well as the heart and the passion and the voice in your neck of the woods. So, you know, I tip my hat to you. I thank you so much for helping us to share the dignity, because without you, we wouldn't have anything.
Well,
what would you say to somebody who was thinking about volunteering, and how could you convince them to jump on board to Share the Dignity?
I would say that Share the Dignity is actually one of almost the easiest ways to get into volunteering, because you're not asking for a full-time commitment. So for people that say, look, I'm a bit time poor, you actually give people the ability to be as involved or as little involved, if that makes sense. So just give of what you can. So I don't work anymore, so I've got the ability to give you more time. So if you need people to go and pick up things from, however many places in Sydney, then I can do it. But if you can just put your name down to go and help at the local Bunnings store once a year, or go and help at the local's Woolies store twice a year, that makes such a huge difference. So it means that many people doing smaller things can work for a common good.
Thank you so much for joining us on our bloody good podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you sit with us and chat.
Thank you. I'm so honoured to be here.